Welcome to LinesToGo installation videos. Today we will be removing and installing brake lines on a 2008 Mercedes C300 with LinesToGo part number BLMB-102-SS. While this particular installation is on a 2008 Mercedes, this set of lines will also work for the following year, make, and models as shown in your screen now. LinesToGo lines are made using original equipment end forms and fittings that are CNC bent for an easy and precise installation. We have also upgraded to stainless steel braided Teflon hoses for rust protection and to prevent surface fouling. These have an unlimited shelf life and anti-static PTFE liner. This set of LinesToGo lines are made from 304L stainless steel for rust resistance that exceeds OEM standards. Tech tip: disconnect the battery before working on a vehicle to reduce the risk of shorting out the battery on tools or lines. LinesToGo lines are made with a sectional design for easier installation. We also use color-coded unions on our sectioned lines. Just match the colors of the connections. Tools required are a T25, T45, 8, 10, 13, and 17 mm sockets and ratchet, 8, 11, 12, and 13 mm wrenches, pliers and cutting pliers, a drain pan, floor jack, and jack stands. The level of difficulty for this installation is considered to be easy. Remove the plastic cover located over the battery. Using a 10 mm wrench, disconnect both battery terminals. Remove the front section of the plastic engine cover. Remove the two intake tubes from the front of the engine. Remove the rear engine cover. Remove the three sections of weather stripping located at the rear of the engine. Remove the driver's side electrical connector from the ECU located on top of the engine, along with the other two connectors in the same harness. Remove the harness from the rear of the engine shield and position it off to the side. Using a T25 socket, remove the two screws on either side of the engine securing the rear cover. Remove the cap from the coolant surge tank. Using an 8 mm socket, remove the screws securing the front lower plastic cover underneath the vehicle and remove the cover. Loosen the plastic drain screw on the radiator to drain the coolant. Tighten the screw once it stops draining. Pull up on the metal locking clip securing the coolant hose at the rear engine shield. Pull the connection apart and remove the rear section from the shield using a screwdriver or pick to push in the plastic tabs. Remove the bolt at the rear of the engine shield using a 13 mm socket. Pull up on the rear engine shield to remove it from the vehicle. Using an 8 mm wrench, remove the nut securing the heat shield on either side of the engine. Remove the battery hold-down bracket using a 13 mm socket and remove the battery from the vehicle. Using a T45 socket, remove the three bolts securing the battery tray and remove the tray from the vehicle. Push in on the four plastic locking tabs located on top of the battery jump start post to remove the cover. Using a flat blade screwdriver, pry back on the two locking tabs and pick up on the jump start housing to disconnect it and position it aside. Remove the plastic cover securing the lines located on the inside of both strut towers. Pull out on the two locking tabs located on the top side of the coolant surge tank and lift it up. Disconnect the two electrical connectors and set the coolant surge tank aside. Using a 12 mm wrench, remove the threaded fittings at the ABS module for the primary and secondary lines along with the right front line using an 11 mm wrench. Using a pair of cutting pliers, cut the right front line at the center of the vehicle behind the throttle body. Remove the line from the two plastic retainers located at the firewall. Using a pair of pliers, remove the spring clamp securing the coolant return hose at the plastic connection and remove the hose. Remove the left section of the right front line from the vehicle. Using a 17mm socket, remove all four wheels. Remove the plastic push clip securing the inner fenders using a flat blade screwdriver. Remove the plastic nuts using a 10mm socket and remove the front portion of the inner fenders from both front wheels along with the rear section from the driver's side inner fender. Remove the plastic retaining bracket from the lines. Using an 11mm wrench, remove the threaded fitting at the right front flex line. Remove the passenger side section of the right front line from the vehicle. Remove the threaded fittings for the left front line from the ABS module and at the left front flex line using an 11mm wrench. Remove the left front line from the vehicle. Using an 11mm wrench, remove the two remaining threaded fittings at the ABS module. Remove the rear lines from the plastic clips located inside the left front inner fender. Using a 10mm socket, remove the nuts securing the driver's side plastic cover and remove it from under the vehicle. Remove the left rear inner fender using a 10mm socket to remove the plastic nuts and a flat blade screwdriver to remove the plastic push clips. Remove the lines from the plastic brackets located inside the left rear inner fender. Using a flat blade screwdriver, remove the plastic bracket securing the wheel speed sensor wiring from the inner fender. Remove the threaded fitting at the left rear flex line using an 11mm wrench. Cut both rear lines at the center of the vehicle and remove the rear section of the left rear line from the vehicle. Remove the front section of the left rear line from the vehicle. Next, remove the front section of the right rear line from the vehicle. Using a pair of cutting pliers, cut the right rear line inside of the left rear wheel well and remove the center section from the vehicle. Remove the threaded fitting at the right rear flex line using an 11mm wrench. Remove the right rear line from the two plastic retaining brackets located on top of the rear subframe. Remove the rear section of the right rear line from the driver's side of the vehicle. Start the installation of your new LinesToGo brake lines by installing the rear section of the right rear line into position from the left rear wheel well and secured into the plastic clips. Start the threaded fitting into the right rear flex line by hand. Next, install the rear section of the left rear line into position and start the threaded fitting into the left rear flex line by hand and secure the line into the plastic clips. Tighten the fitting at the left rear flex line using a 12mm wrench. Install the center section of the right rear line into position and start the threaded union in the left rear inner fender by hand. Replace the plastic bracket holding the wheel speed sensor wiring back into place. Next, feed the front section of both rear lines into place and secure them into the plastic clips located inside the left front inner fender. Start both threaded unions at the center of the vehicle by hand, noting the LinesToGo color-coded ends. Tighten all three unions using a 12mm and a 13mm wrench. Tighten the fittings at the flex lines and ABS module using a 12mm wrench. Install the driver's side section of the right front line into place. Feed the passenger side section of the right front line into position and start the threaded union located behind the engine. Start the threaded fittings into the ABS module and the right front flex line by hand and tighten using a 12mm wrench. Tighten the threaded union behind the engine using a 12mm and a 13mm wrench. Next, install the left front line into position and start the fittings into the ABS module and the left front flex line by hand. Tighten both fittings using a 12mm wrench. Tighten the primary and secondary lines back into the ABS module using a 12mm wrench. Bleed all 4 wheels using an 11mm wrench for the bleeder screws and make sure the brake fluid reservoir stays topped up. Replace the lower plastic cover using a 10mm socket to tighten the plastic nuts. Replace the left rear inner fender and both front inner fenders using a 10mm socket to tighten the plastic nuts. Replace all 4 wheels using a 17mm socket and torque to spec. Install the front lower guard and tighten the bolts using an 8mm socket. Replace the 2 electrical connectors on the surge tank and reposition it onto the strut tower. Replace the battery jump post and install the plastic cover. Install the battery tray into place and tighten the 3 bolts using a T45 socket. Install the battery into position and tighten the hold down clamp using a 13mm socket. Install the overflow tube back onto the coolant connection and replace the spring clamp. Position the rear engine shield back into position and tighten the 2 screws using a T25 socket. Using a 13mm socket, replace the bolt into the back shield behind the engine. Replace the coolant connection, making sure the spring clip is secured. Replace the wiring harness at the rear engine shield along with 3 pieces of weather stripping. Plug in the 3 electrical connectors located on top of the engine. Replace the 2 nuts on either side of the engine using an 8mm wrench. Replace the rear engine cover, making sure it is seated around the throttle body at the rear of the engine. Install the 2 intake tubes along with the front engine cover. Replace both battery terminals and tighten with a 10mm wrench. Replace the plastic cover over the battery. Start the engine and top up the coolant. This concludes the installation of brake lines on a 2008 Mercedes C300 with LinesToGo part number BLMB-102-SS. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or would like to purchase the lines you saw today, please call us at 1-855-781-5992. Email us at info@linestogo.com or check out our website link below. And don't forget to take advantage of our free 2-day shipping. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe button below, and we will see you on our next video.